All right. Hi, guys. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to week 2 of Routine Reset. As much as you probably liked listening to me last week, you're only going to hear me for like a short snippet. Super excited you guys are here. Wanted to do a couple announcements before we get started. Today, our presentation has been sponsored by Shrub. So they're drinking vinegars that are available to drink, or you can take a couple bottles home with you if you want to try them out, see how you like it. And then we're also being sponsored by Thrive Market. So at the end of our presentation today, we're going to be drawing one routine resetter to get a free year subscription to Thrive Market. So you can buy all those bougie snacks that you like so much, right? So that being said, I'd love to introduce our speaker today, Ian Rubin. He is the founder and food story coach, a really awesome trainer, mentor, and speaker. So I think you guys are going to get a lot out of his talk today. So I will leave him to it. Ian Rubin.
I much prefer that intro to what usually happens, which is they read my 150-word bio. Ian Rubin, founder of Whole Self Wellness, has been in the field for 15 years. In addition to his work, I'm like, oh, just get me on stage. Just get me on stage. So again, my name's Ian. You can call me Coach Ian, but just Ian is fine. And after 15, I was in the field for about 3 years, personal training for about 3 years. And I was like, there's something going on here. And I couldn't get my clients to follow my advice around nutrition. They'd come in, they'd work out, they would totally follow my training. But the food stuff was really hard. So that led me to my master's work. And since 2006, this is the work that I've been focused on, is this food story coaching methodology and way of approaching people around their relationship with food, which I'm going to talk to you all about tonight. Raise your hand if any of you were here for the last routine reset last year and heard me do this talk. Okay, so no repeat people coming back to say, I want to hear that again. This is all new to people. Very good. Okay, so I'm feeling a little out of sorts. I haven't been out, and I certainly haven't been in front of people in over 2 years. I'm sure that's, raise your hand if that's true for you too. Feels strange to look at people with masks and to be this close, but I'm all marinated up and everything. So this is sort of it's an exciting but nerve-wracking time for me to be up in front of you. I've given this presentation many, many times, but not for the last 2 years in person. So if it feels a little bumpy at times, or if I seem like I get lost, I beg a little forgiveness. That being said, because I have done this presentation so many times, I know the material, you can interrupt at any time. I'd much rather have a conversation during the presentation rather than having me talk for 40, 45 minutes straight and have everyone save their Q&A to the end. And then they're like, what was that question I was going to ask? And I don't remember anymore, so I'll just move on. So feel free to raise hands anytime you have questions. Anything you'd like to know about me or about what we're going to do tonight before we jump in? Excellent. Okay. I'm going to try not to linger too much on the slides. You'll be able to watch this on download and stream if you want to rewatch it. I, again, would much rather get through the material, give you an overview, and know that the last 2 or 3 slides will review everything. It'll give you all the fundamentals. It'll review all the high points. You don't have to try to memorize what I'm saying, or I have no expectation that you're going to follow much of what I'm talking about in the first 10 or 12 or 15 slides. If you're like, that makes sense, or I like that, or I agree with that, or that's an interesting point, that's all that really matters. You don't have to remember all the facts and figures that might be on the slides. Does that make sense? Here's what my face looks like. You'll probably see it a few more times. Okay. So again, I've told you my story. Unless anyone wants more details about how I got here, just know I've been doing this for a long time. And if David trusts me, you can trust me. Okay. So here's the fundamental question that I'm always curious about, which is, have you said one of these 2 questions out loud to a trainer, to a nutritionist, to a doctor? Have you said to them, hey, look, you teach me what to do about nutrition and I will do it? Or have you said, well, yeah, I know what to do, I just don't do it. Help make me do it. Keep me motivated. Keep me accountable. Raise your hand if either of these sound familiar. Near universal appeal. So this is what I was hearing more and more than anything else. And I have heard it more than anything else in the 20 years that I've been in the field in regards to nutrition. So my thought process over the years has been, okay, if this is true, why are we not seeing the type of success that people want to have when they want to make dietary change? Raise your hand if you've had a challenge in the past with making changes to your diet. Again, near universal. So it isn't that you don't know what to do, and it isn't likely that you don't want to make the change. So what is it that we actually really need to do to help people? Well, let's define the problem first. I wish I had my little clicker. It feels weird to touch the screen. Okay, see if this resonates with you. You get given a nutrition plan, naturopath, doctor, nutritionist, online, download, wherever you get it. You can't do it. For whatever reason, you can't do it. No judgment. I'm just saying you can't implement it at all. Too complicated, too much money, too much time. Don't like what's on the plan, right? So not if any of this is resonating, and shake your head this way if something's not resonating. Otherwise, I won't know that I'm even. Okay, very good. Just in case. You can follow it for a little, but you can't follow it for very long. You fall back to your old ways. Okay. It's always good for me too to get confirmation, because if this is no longer true, I need to change what I'm talking about. Many people don't go back to who they got the plan from because they are overwhelmed and they don't feel like they can stick to the plan. And they're like, well, I paid for it. They gave me a plan. Why should I go back? They said, do the plan and then let me know how it goes. Well, I haven't done the plan. So why go back? Again, somewhat compliant, but can't do everything. You're like, I probably could do better, should do better, wish I were doing better. Oh, okay. Bottom line is you have not stuck to the plan well enough or long enough to see the kind of success that you want. Raise your hand. Is that what happened? For most of us, we see the plan, we want to follow the plan, we understand the plan, but we just can't implement it long enough, sustainable enough, or at a high enough level to actually get the results that we want, or we can't do it and sustain it, so then we end up falling off and then we lose all of our gains. I saw this year after year in the work that I was doing as a trainer and as a health and wellness coach, and I was like, we've got to come up with a better way. So that's what led me to getting my master's degree way back. Anyone cast your mind back into the early 2000s? 2004 was when I went back and got my master's. Okay, so let's talk about why this keeps happening. So in my opinion, the reason why this is happening is it isn't that the plan is bad, although it could be a bad plan. There are many, many bad nutrition plans out there. But it isn't, in fact, that it's your lack of willpower. It isn't a lack of desire. It isn't a lack of knowing what to do. It's not like you lack knowledge. But what I think fundamentally is going on in our industry, the health and wellness industry, nutrition, fitness, personal training, is practitioners spend so much time educating and so little time coaching and facilitating change. Anyone been coached before? Personal coach, or besides personal training, life coach, career coach, spiritual coach. Coaching is different than educating. You can read all the information in the world, you can Google it anytime you want, but actually implementing change often requires more than just the education piece. It requires help with implementation, and that's where coaching really comes in. So this food story coaching is really designed to help move people forward when they're stuck with, I know what to do, I want to do it, but I'm just not able to. So how many of you have felt some of these ways by back in the day when you maybe tried this with another practitioner? You felt like you should have been able to do better, that you're weak-willed, you felt that the practitioner was like, well, what's your problem? I'm telling you to stay off of gluten. Why is it so hard for you? You want to get better? Stay off of gluten. What do you want from me? I told you to stay off of gluten. You're like, well, yeah, that's nice and I get it, but it's a little harder to do than just get off of gluten. Just stop eating dairy. Just stop eating sugar. Like, you make it sound like it's just this easy thing to do, like a checklist. And I've seen many, many clients over the years. I've worked with lots of practitioners who have told me that this is what their clients are feeling. They're feeling very bad about themselves. And I think to myself, well, that's the practitioner's fault, not the client's fault. If we're shaming people, making them feel bad, but we're not helping facilitate change and give them what they need to be successful, then that's on us as the coaches. So far, you with me? Anything I say sound foreign or not true or doesn't resonate in any way? Everything, yeah, kind of, yeah, right? You're with me so far. Okay. This is a little nerdy, but you are fulcrum people. So you're smarter than the average bears. Look, there are lots of reasons why we eat the way we do. This is sort of technical, but again, you'll follow this. It's not just willpower and knowledge. There's 100 things going on any given day that influence why you choose the food that you choose. Anything up here resonate? Which one? Anyone want to share? What piqued someone's interest? What went, oh yeah, that's me, or oh, that's interesting? Anyone? Time. Which one? Yeah, mood, stress, guilt, time. What else? Anyone else that something resonated or they found curious or new or different? Social. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Number 8, yeah, lots of information. Oh my gosh. Yeah, there's too much information. Well, context includes like drinking alcohol, right? Yeah, social context means, are you hanging out by yourself? Are you with your friends? Or are you with your fulcrum friends? Or are you with your friends who like to drink beer and eat pizza? Are you with your, friends who want to sit around and smoke pot all night? What's that? Oh, I said eating, drinking, and eating pizza with your friends. I said always. Always, right. So social context matters, right? Yeah. So all of these things are going on, and therefore it's not just knowing what's good to eat. It's not just wanting to eat better. We have to appreciate that all of these forces are at play at some level in your life. Tell me this doesn't take a load off. Does this help take a little bit of a load off, that it's not all it's not all about you? It's like you're not weak-willed or you're not just unmotivated? That's what most of my clients have said over the years. They're like, well, thank God for someone telling me that it's not just my problem, that it's not just that I don't care enough or I'm not willing to work hard enough. I would suggest that knowledge is part of the problem with this whole equation, that we have so much information that we get paralyzed. We get too much information, we get overloaded. And when you get overloaded with too much information, what do? You freeze. How many of you just go back to what you know? You go back to what's convenient. You go back to what you've done in the past. You go back to what you've used to do. So this idea that, oh, if we just educated people more, if we just gave them the information that they needed, they'd somehow magically be successful. I think there's a total disconnect with how people actually make change. So when I work with my nutritionists and where I teach and coach other wellness professionals, I tell them, be very careful about educating your clients about nutrition. A little education can go a long way, but for most people, they already know most of what they need to know to be successful. They just need help with implementation and sustainability. Ringing bells? Yeah. What are we going to talk about? Again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but raise your hand if our culture is effing us up over food. Okay, sold. So again, I don't think we need to spend a lot of time on that. I think we all appreciate that. Culture is a big force here, whether it's social media, whether it's just American culture, capitalism, the beauty industry, you name it. There's a lot of pressure from our culture about why we think we do the way we do about food. So again, understand that you are a product as well as a source of that food culture. You build it and you live it, right? It's a circular thing. So depending on where you grew up makes a difference, but you grew up in America, you are exposed to all of this craziness around food in America. This is not something you can see closely, but on the right-hand side, this is what's more important. Coca-Cola owns 500 brands, not 500 products, 500 brands. So like Tropicana is one brand that Coca-Cola owns, and they might have a dozen kinds of orange juice. Or Nestle owns 2,000 brands. That means a brand is like, let's see if I can look up here and see one. Let's see, Nestle. Where's the Nestle? Where'd it go? There it is. Let's see if I can see one. Can you see one of it? Can anyone make any of these out? They're kind of hard to see. Nescafe, they're hard to read because it's came off of a computer. But all of these products, Kit Kat, how many different kinds of Kit Kats can you make? They're doing it. DiGiorno, how many different DiGiorno pizzas are there, for God's sakes? PepsiCo has $22 billion brands. In other words, 22 of their brands generate over $1 billion a year in revenue. So we are flooded with all of these brands in our environment that are all telling you to drink this and don't drink that. Drink Dasani, don't drink Fuji. Drink Pepsi, don't drink Coke. Like the classic cola wars. Any of you old enough to actually remember like the original cola wars? Yeah, it's gone crazy. It's no longer just Pepsi versus Coke. Now it's everything under the sun. So this is what we're swimming in all the time, which means that it is easy for our food environment to mess with our naturally social or our naturally environment, blah, 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 our naturally emotional relationship with food. Slow down, Ian. Over the years, I've had clients say, oh, I don't have a relationship with food. I just eat food. I go, okay, well, tell me about that. Well, I just eat food that's, clean or good for me, or I only eat food that I can source locally, or, oh, I just eat what I like whenever I like it. I'm like, yeah, that's your relationship with food. It's not a non-relationship. It's just that those are the rules of your relationship with food. But for most of us, we don't eat in a very logical fashion most of the time. It's a lot of work to get to the point where I say, oh, the emotional content of food is just no relevance to me whatsoever. If you've done that, come talk to me because I'm going to do a study about you and we're going to get you into Guinness Book. If you can tell me that you eat food with no emotional content whatsoever. People tell me, oh, no, I don't have an emotional relationship with food. I just eat food that I love. Yeah, I just hate eating food that tastes gross. Yes, okay. Like people they don't conceive of food as being this thing, even though we know it is. We know it is. Probably one of the most powerful things about food is its psycho and emotional relationship that we have with it, because food is everything to the human experience. One of the most famous anthropologists, she said, first we do food, then we do everything else. If we don't have enough food, you can't worry about things like art, religion, philosophy, economics. You got to eat and survive first before you can do any of those other things. So we're wired to think about food being deeply symbolic and deeply important to us. Food first, food is survival. So it carries a very deep place in our psyche of meaning making and meaning seeking through food. I won't nerd out too far on that, but you get it. Again, stop me anytime. Anyone? Questions, comments, feedback? I hate to talk for more than 20 minutes without somebody asking me a question or having some feedback. Anyone? Okay. Are you just processing? I can hear wheels grinding. Where are we? Oh, yes. Cognitive challenges. All I mean by cognitive challenges is how many of you have gone to the supermarket, stood in front of an aisle of food, and racked your brain over what to choose? You're running through this app, then you're checking that app, then you're checking it against your doctor's visit, and then you're thinking about your training routine, and then you're checking it, okay, macronutrients, then you're checking it for how is it sourced, is it gluten-free, is it fair trade? Like, holy shit. Your brain just melts down trying to figure out what I should be eating in any given day. There's so much information that we just get stuck and we get pulled in to all of this different information from all these different areas of our life. And as much as we say, I understand, it's hard with implementation because of this confusion that is built up by having way too much information in our hands. Who grew up before the internet? Wasn't life somewhat easier? Let's be honest. To a great extent, life was quite a bit easier before the internet, in the sense of I wasn't bombarded 24/7 with all this information that I'm trying to process. That's the downside of the internet. It's great. There's lots of information, free-flowing information, connecting with other people, but there is a downside, which is we got too much information. Our brains are not designed to hold and process this much information. So what do? We get overwhelmed. It gets emotional. It's no longer an intellectual pursuit. It just gets overwhelming. And then that gets into that shame, blame space of, but I know better, but I can't do it because I'm overwhelmed. Sound familiar? So bottom line, despite our best of intentions, most of us are not doing as well as we would like. We're overwhelmed with too much information. We're stuck in a diet mindset. We're too busy paying attention to every one of 100 people's opinions. We're trying to do things too much, don't know how it's affecting us. But bottom line is you keep hearing or you believe that you aren't motivated, dedicated, or serious enough, or you don't have enough willpower. That is the broad message out in the health and wellness field. It's your fault. Get it together. You need more information. You need to suck it up. You need to be willing to work hard and make some sacrifice, and you too could have success. Total bunk as far as I'm concerned. So what I want to do is change from this education model, which is it's all about data, to an empowerment model, which is what helps you actually feel empowered to go and do the things that you know will be best for you, regardless of what any expert tells you you should be following, whether it's keto to vegan, whether it's IF to, I don't care, whatever it is. Raise your hand if you'd like to feel more empowered around your relationship with food. Well, I guess we're in the right place, talking about the right thing. So this is my approach. Now, over the years, I developed it because I saw this was happening. I got a master's degree, worked with more clients, did a whole bunch of stuff, and I thought, okay, yeah, it's about people's food story. It's their thoughts, it's their feelings, it's their beliefs. That's what's driving their behaviors. And that if we address the food story, lo and behold, people were making better choices without having to like plan it or journal it or write it down or angst over it. They just did make better choices because they were actually working at a level within themselves that actually created a sense of empowerment. So it's like life coaching, but it's oriented towards our relationship with food. Does that help frame it? I think life coaching is fairly well understood these days. Okay, so we're going to do this. We're going to take a moment to explore your story. And here's what we're going to do. I want you to turn and face a couple people. Go ahead, turn and face a couple people. Okay, make friend. You know everybody here. Come on. And we're going to spend 5 minutes to the bottom of the hour, to the halfway mark of the hour. Oh, danger! Man down, soda down. I want you to discuss with each other, and again, just find a group or a couple. You know, work on one or two people at a time. Doesn't matter. But here's what I want you to talk about. Why did you choose the food that you chose off the back? Or why didn't you choose the food that you didn't choose off of the back? What insight does that give you into your relationship, your food story? And go. So not to cut people off, but why don't we wrap up? Come on back to the group. Sorry to cut you off. I know we could do this all night, right? We could just sit and talk about this. Let's do this. How about this? Would anyone like to share any insight or anything that came out of their conversation before we continue? Speak up real loud. Okay, so it was a test. So what did you do? You took the chips. Okay. 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 Great. Thanks for sharing. Anyone else?
We talked about having a plan.
Uh-huh.
Like some people are going home to eat.
Uh-huh.
Already ate, so we didn't pick anything from the table.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Certainly having a plan prior or after can have an impact. Sure.
That was a large part of our discussion too.
Yeah.
I had already eaten fried pig, and I just felt like I had already gotten my fuel and my real nutritious food from the meal I made on Monday to last me a couple of days.
Yeah.
And that kind of planning I felt was what Erin was saying too. It's helpful for her to make good food choices across the week or whatever. And so for me, I had a couple of Twizzlers. I'll probably have some more. Got like more food coming later. So I don't think I'm gonna like spoil anything if I do it.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Now I know there's Twizzlers over there. I didn't
Well, then you got to go get them. You're gonna have to go get some Twizzlers. Anyone else?
I was the opposite.
Sure.
I had a really crap day and was an emotional wreck at 8 due to it. I think that today coming in, I was like, you know what, I can make a better choice. So popcorn it was.
Okay. Okay. Thanks for the share. I appreciate that. Yeah. So see, it's all over the place. There's no right or wrong answer. I'm not trying to catch anyone except this guy back here because he keeps looking at me shifty. Other than that, there's no wrong answers. But no, really, the point is we all come to our relationship with food and our interactions with food from all of this information processing in our head. And when we make decisions, a lot of it is outside of our conscious mind. We might tell ourselves, oh, I'm doing it because of this, but there's a lot of other stuff going on. And it's just knowing that that's happening can make a huge impact on your life, because most of us are not making choices fully informed with what's really going on with us. So thank you for letting me do that little experiment. So my point is that for many people, their relationship with food, their food story, by the way, I use those interchangeably. Food story, relationship with food. They're kind of interchangeable. One feeds the other. Don't mind me if I use both. Most of us are not even aware that we have a food story, and unaware that it's actually having an impact on us. Even if we did know it, we probably can't change it on our own. So it's valuable to know that it's actually happening. And so what food story is ironically telling us, partly, is that the problem is, in fact, that you aren't educated, motivated, or willing to sacrifice enough. That's that cultural story that I mentioned that tells us how we should think and feel about food that isn't really ours to own, but we think it is because it's how we grew up. It's just that voice in our head that says, well, if I can just get my shit together this time, I know I could do it. That's our story, that it's about me and me having to figure it out. That no, not an acknowledgement of all the forces that are out there that are getting in my way. Oh no, we can't have that story. That would actually empower you to understand what's going on out there versus what's going on in here. So again, your food story comes from a lot of sources. So of course, family of origin, and of course, culture, right? Outside forces are going to influence how you think and feel about food. Anyone here not raised in the United States? Not raised in the United States? Okay. So my guess is that your cultural upbringing in your family of origin is very different than the rest of us who grew up in America. Makes a difference, right? Where you grew up makes a difference. Your individual experience, how you grew up. I was bullied. I was skinny. I was a tiny little guy. I got pushed around. That changed my whole outlook on body image, food, fitness, everything. How many of us were body shamed growing up? Almost all of us probably got some of it. Whether you were the athlete, the dork, the kid that was down the street on the wrong side of tracks, birth order, and then there's all the cultural things, and then there's trauma, capital T trauma, little t traumas, you know, all the things that we think about now that we don't want to do to kids today might have happened to us 20 or 30 years ago, but we didn't know then how bad that was. So think about your own individual upbringing and how that might have influenced your food story. So what do? How do we approach this? How do we work with our food story? Well, as I said, you have to build awareness. If you're not even aware that you have a food story, it's kind of hard to work on it. So that was what my test was all about, was to catch you in identifying your own food story. That little assignment was to help you identify, oh, I do have a story that's going on in my mind about, did I plan? Was I emotional today? Am I eating before? Did I eat after? Was there anything on the table that I think is good for me, clean, legitimate, on my plan, off my plan? All of the theories, all the plans, all the ideas that came up, building awareness that you have that is a good start and gets you going in the right direction. So whatever it takes for you to do that, some of you might do breathing, or you might try mindful eating. You might journal about what you eat. You might be one that hikes in nature, takes a run with a dog, and it helps you really get in touch with what's going on today. Why did I eat like that today? Whatever works. I'm not dictating how you become more aware of your own food story, but I do encourage you to try something like this. And G.I. Joe said, knowing is half the battle. So what's the other half? Anybody? G.I. Joe? Come on, seriously? There's no G.I. Joe fans here? Wow. Tough crowd. No G.I. Joe fans, only one or two. Well, so when you become aware of it, we got to like think about it, take a look at it, analyze it. Like, well, what is this? Why do I do this? Why do I think that if I do X, then I can do Y? Why do I do food math where if I measure and weigh and calculate out my macros, then I somehow feel more comfortable about eating things that I know are bad for me? Or if I weigh my minutes of exercise, then I feel okay about eating foods that aren't clean. And where did I get the whole definition of clean food versus unclean food? Like, is that a religious thing? No, that's not a religious thing. Where did I get that? Like, this is the next step. We have to unpack what's going on in our story to understand how it's affecting us. Anyone want to share any insights about their food story from what we've done so far in the 35 minutes we've been here? Anyone feeling brave? I always get this many takers at the beginning. No, thank you. It's okay. Think about it. Just think about it. We don't want to hear about David, right? Who cares about this? You know. Go ahead. I'm kidding. I'm giving you a hard time.
I was a bodybuilder when I was younger, and I started working out around then, and that stuff. Like, I was like you. I was really small, and then I started like lifting, and I got bigger, and people stopped picking on me. And so that protein became really important. And so
protein good, cardio bad.
Yeah, well,
that was my life.
Place, but sure, you want to kind of get it on and then keep it on.
Yeah.
And so doing things that were like, we call them catabolic, where your body eats your muscle. If you have too much, it's kind of like it wants to eat it to keep you at like a different place. So there's like this resistance. But trying to keep that from happening was sort of like a thing. And then that's sort of like looking at how that's shaped me as I'm now 43. And, you know, I think about different types of foods. It's like hard for me to consider like trading like meat for vegetables to become vegan, or, you know, that's always kind of the part of my mind. And even after reading that, like, that protein prescriptions are highly overstated for people, for our existence, potentially harmful. People seem to live longer eating less. Caloric restriction is like apparently a key to longevity. It's all sort of BS, but we still tend to, you know, I'm so shaped in that way that, you know, it makes me feel weird if I don't have certain things. So
yeah, there you go.
Just a conversation.
Is that right? Does that sound familiar? Does that resonate? That's how a lot of us think about our food story. We're like, well, yeah, but I have to eat this food, or I shouldn't eat that food, or I have to have this in the morning, but that at night, and I can only have this if I already haven't had that. There's all kinds of calculus going on in our heads about what to eat, when to eat it, how much to eat it, in combination with what other things. If we don't understand that this is going on, it's hard to work to change it. So become aware, do a little analysis, like, oh, that's what's going on. Okay, now I understand what's going on. Now here is the first trip up, is beating ourselves up and being judgmental about what we discover. Raise your hand if you've never beaten yourself up about what you eat. Again, if you can raise your hand, I will put you in a study. We'll be rich. We just do this. As soon as we see that we're not doing what we want, or we think we could have done it different, the coulda, woulda, shoulda. Anyone know the joke? Don't shit on yourself. Come on. Don't shit on yourself. First thing we do is we start shitting on ourselves. Oh, God, I suck. Why do I do this? It's so stupid. It doesn't make any sense. It's not rational. Yeah? Sound familiar? Resist the urge to beat yourself up and whip yourself with a wet noodle. By the way, young people do not understand the reference, whip yourself with a wet noodle. They don't understand what I mean. They're like, what do you, I don't know where I picked it up. Maybe it's maybe it's my dad joke, you know, vernacular, but like beating yourself with a wet noodle. Like, I don't know. Resist the urge to judge yourself. Just let whatever you discover and whatever you feel about your situation, your food story, whatever you discovered, just let it be, because it just is what it is. It's just the reality of your own food story. It doesn't need to be something that you feel like you should fix or feel badly about. Because if you can do that, you can take the next step, which is to truly accept that, okay, this is what my food story is. Now, the irony is that most of us have been trained to believe that food story is what's on this left-hand side. Suck it up, deal with it. It is just going to have to be what it is. You don't have to like it. You resolve yourself that this is just, it's going to suck. That's just the way it is. That's not what acceptance really means. What acceptance really means is, okay, this is what it is. It's just what it is. And once you accept that this is what it is, then you actually can change, because you're not in resistance to wishing it were different. Does that sound familiar? Does that resonate with anyone else? It's hard to wrap our heads around for some people that accepting what is the escape to making change. But when we're in resistance to what is when we get stuck and we can't usually move forward. So that's like the black belt move of health coaching. My coach would teach me, he's like, don't explain it all to them. Just give them the black belt move. Okay. Learn to accept in the way that acceptance truly means this is what it is, and it will free you to step into the next phase, which is right, what we all are looking for, which is to actually do it different. I want to actually shop and cook and eat differently than I do, Ian. This is the path that I have found to be super successful for people. And when they get to this place, they say, okay, I get it. Here are the parts that I like about my food story. Here are the parts that I don't like about my food story. Here's what I want to change. And they actually implement and sustain the change, because it comes from an inside out place. It doesn't come from some outside in, top down, I said so, and therefore you must go do it place. Does that feel better? Does that feel like it might actually serve you better than previous things? Okay. A special little note about grief. Often when we have to grapple with this story of ours, there can be some grief in it, because we may realize that as much as we love grandma's homemade whatevers that she makes for us every season or every birthday, that it's just not the right food for me anymore. If I eat it, I just feel like shit. And I just can't do it anymore to myself. That doesn't mean that I don't love grandma or that I don't love what she used to make for me, but I've decided that I have to say, we can no longer be friends. We have to break up. Yeah.
I have a question from our Zoom chat.
Oh, okay.
Kind of going back to this acceptance. How can we accept something when there's going to be hateful feelings associated with it?
I'm not quite sure I can answer it based on that little bit of information. I think what I'll say is this. Acceptance means that you allow for those feelings to be there. Those shitty feelings, you accept that that's part of where you're at, that you're pissed, that you're frustrated, that you're angry, that you're hateful, that you have to make the change. I don't want to have to give up grandma's favorite fancy thing. I don't want to have to pay attention to what I eat the way I do. I'm pissed about it. But instead of saying, well, it's fucking bullshit and it shouldn't be this way, and I'm pissed at my parents and society fucked me up and all rah, 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 that's what gets us stuck in those feelings, and we just churn and we churn. But if we say, yep, I'm pissed about it and it sucks and I wish it were different. Well, okay, but that's what it is. Now we actually have a chance to release some of that pent up frustration and anger and actually move forward. I hope that helps. This is not meant to sound like it's just like, oh, just accept and it's all good. Like, I mean, acceptance is a process, it's work, but it works better in my experience than other things. And beating ourselves up for the reality of our lives is not helping most people. Wishing it were different, arguing about how it happened, why it happened, who's at fault, why did it happen to me, it isn't fair. All that stuff just gets us stuck and churning in the same garbage. But if we simply say, this is the lot that I have been given, and here I am right now. I cannot control what has happened to me up till now. I have no influence over what has happened to me in the past. I only have influence over the now and somewhat moving forward. And that's a shift that we don't teach people about food. We tell them to get wrapped up in all that other stuff rather than acknowledge it, own it, and say, okay, now what am I going to do about it? Now that I know that this is what it is. Understand that this is years of work that I've developed and could be months to years of work for a client that I'm trying to keep in under an hour so that it doesn't overwhelm all of you with like going, oh my God, he's still talking. Step into action. You will find a way forward. And what I have found is that when people work on their food story, all the planning and the math and the journaling and the tabs and the apps fall away and they find their path forward in a much more intuitive, natural fashion. Now, that isn't to say that they don't ask a nutritionist to help them figure out what is in fact better for them to eat or how many calories or what nutrients or what macros. Like, they might need that help. So you're going to meet Kristen next week. I could not do that. Kristen can. She's a full-blown master's of nutrition science. She's an expert in understanding medical conditions, individuals, bioindividuality, where you are in your life cycle. Like, she can help you dial in. This is what we decide is best for you nutritionally. but she's always going to be thinking, how does it fit into your food story? She's one of my students. She's one of my ongoing mentees. She's very passionate about food story. It's why she's coming to be part of Routine Reset and to be available to do nutrition consultations down the road with all of you, as well as I'm going to be offering food story coaching down the road in the new year with the help of B and because of David and B's invitation. Because what we've realized is once you know the nutrition science, like fine, let's dial that in, or maybe tweak your knowledge base. Maybe it's not a wholesale, revision of information. Then it's about supporting you to be successful moving forward by working in conjunction of food story with what about the science. So if I know I should be gluten-free, maybe some suggestions on how to eat different gluten-free options, like what are those gluten-free options? But then food story is, well, I don't want to do it. And I'm pissed that I have to do it. And I don't like those things as much as I like wheat bread. Oh, maybe we should talk about that. Rather than me giving you 6 other options of gluten-free grains, maybe we should talk about the fact that you're pissed that you have to be gluten-free. And if we can help you resolve and feel a little bit like, yeah, I'm pissed, but I'm going to do it anyways, then it won't matter how many variations you have. You'll just do what needs to get done because you're like, all right, I've worked through that. I'm pissed, but I'm going to do it because I feel like shit if I don't. And I'm okay with the fact that, well, that's my trade-off. Yes? No? Is this making sense? It's so strange not to see whole faces, right? It's still strange, right? It's still strange. I don't see smiles. I can't see frowns. All I see is eyes. And all I know is the eyes are always like that guy back there. All I see is just like. So grief, it can happen. It's just a natural part of the work. Okay, so I want to wrap up so we can do a little Q&A and chat a little bit more. I don't care why you want to make a change to your diet. I don't care if it's weight loss. I don't care if it's health. I don't care if it's eating for ethical and moral reasons. Whatever reason you have that you want to change the way you eat, consider the food story process as part of the journey that you take in addition to the nutrition science. You probably already know most of what you need to be successful in terms of what to eat. Food story can help you with actually implementing because it gets to the why. And there's my little 4-step